All right, here we are. I don't know if there's a delay here on this thing. There's some sort of like 10-second, 30-second delay. Regardless, here we are, and I'm going to start chatting. So the format here is there's a bunch of questions below here, or I guess over here, depending on where the video is for you. And I'm just going to start at the top. So they're, ordered by votes. If there's a particular question you want answered, like for sure, then upvote it. And I'm just going to start at the top and work my way down. But I'll talk about anything here. So if you've got a question or you want me to yap about something, click the big orange ask a question or suggest a topic button. And I'll just start knocking these out, and we'll stay here for as long as we need to knock all these out. Let's see. Can everybody hear me? So if yes, throw something in the comments over there. I'll make sure all this stuff's working. I think this supposedly is also live streaming to Facebook, YouTube, and on Periscope. Apparently Crowdcast can live stream all these things to all these different places. So that's kind of cool. If you would prefer, yeah, there I am. I see it on Facebook live. Neato. So if you prefer Facebook Live, facebook.com/baremetrics. Where else is this? youtube.com/user. Is this correct? I'm making stuff up now. The channel does not exist. I don't know. Maybe you can find it somewhere on the YouTubes. Either way. Okay, cool. So we've got at least 12 questions to tackle here. So let me kind of get a quick overview of what's going on. Cool. All right. Let's start on this first one here. So Michael asks, what's the reasoning behind having one blog on Medium and one blog on your Baremetrics website? Great question, Michael. So interestingly enough, the article that we posted this week or yesterday, we actually did not post it to Medium, and we posted it back on the baremetrics.com site. So for those not aware, we have baremetrics.com/blog. And then we have blog.baremetrics.com, which is obviously not well thought out. So we had baremetrics.com/blog for ages. I mean, that's where the blog has existed since Baremetrics started 3.5 years ago. And then we started noticing like a year ago, I would post random things on Medium, like just on Medium, still kind of Baremetrics related or just business related. And they started getting a decent amount of traction there. At the same time, there were other companies who were shifting to moving their blog exclusively to Medium. So Basecamp's a great example. Their signal versus noise blog, they transitioned just to Medium. So that was kind of an interesting thing. And then we started kind of like throwing around, hey, what's the purpose of the blog? Is it search like SEO stuff, or is it is it a distribution thing? Like we just want access to get new customers or new people just to read the stuff? Is it about just this distribution of ideas? Like, is it even about Baremetrics at all? So we decided to give this a try. Like, what if we just posted stuff on Medium and we do it as a publication? So with a publication, you can have your own domain. So I guess, I don't know, earlier this year, we decided like, hey, let's start posting stuff just to our own publication on Medium, and maybe slowly transition stuff from our self-hosted blog over to Medium and see what happens. So there were about, I don't know, 6-7 blog posts that we did straight to Medium. Didn't post them on our own self-hosted blog other than posting a link to the articles on Medium. Did that for a few months, And we're actually now transitioning back to our self-hosted blog. So what we found was that the benefits, so the big benefit of having it on the self-hosted is the sort of like email collection component. And there's like ad retargeting stuff. Like we can track people who come and visit, and then we can track their flow a lot better. Like, hey, they looked at articles on marketing and growth, and then they signed up. And so then you can track that stuff. You can't do that with Medium. You can see that maybe they came here from blog.baremetrics.com / whatever the Medium article is, but we couldn't see anything before that. And so it was making the customer acquisition funnel much more fragmented as far as tracking it. And and then there's the whole like email collection thing. And we have built up enough content on the blog itself, on our self-hosted blog, that we've got like, there is a lot of search engine traffic that comes from that. I mean, that we can't ignore that. And I feel like we've got enough of, I don't know what the word would be, like the blog itself is known, like it's got its own sort of, I don't know, rapport amongst the startup community, that it wasn't like we were just posting stuff to deaf ears. So it wasn't hard to like get the traction from posting stuff there. So now the plan is to, like, there's still a place, I think, for the Medium publication. What we'll ultimately do is redirect blog.baremetrics.com to like a microservice that will then properly redirect to the article on baremetrics.com/blog. And then we'll keep some content exclusively just for the Medium site. And that's stuff that's like, doesn't necessarily make as much sense for our own self-hosted blog. Like that might be just stuff that I post that isn't, maybe it's more like just maybe I have an idea about something, I'll post like a little 300 to 500 word something on Medium. I don't know. But we're moving back from Medium back to our self-hosted blog. And so then what we also might do is then like rework some content to like a shorter form version of any given article and put it on Medium. But all the initial content will go back to our self-hosted blog and start there. And then we'll kind of just rework it to other formats and other sites later on. And so then we'll use Medium more like in the way that you might turn an article into like a small presentation and put it on SlideShare or something like that. So that is that's sort of where we've been with this whole, like, should we use Medium for the company blog thing? And we've just got so much content, like we'd rather have one central location for most of it, and then rework it and use Medium as like an additional distribution channel, but not the primary one. So that's the short answer. Okay. Mr. H asks, tips on how to handle support, going from doing it yourself to hire the first person to having a team of supporters. In a normal, slow-growing business, there seems to be a big gap from not wanting to do it yourself anymore to there is now enough work for a full-time position. So I messed this up early on in Baremetrics where like I waited way too long to hire a support person. There's an article somewhere on the Baremetrics blog about this, and it's like there was a point where it was taking like the average response time on a ticket was like 2.5 days or something, which is obscene. So my suggestion is not necessarily to hire a full-time support person right away, but hire somebody part-time really quick. I think there's the using support as a way to learn how customers are using your product is a good thing. So like, I think doing support yourself there's a positive aspect of that. And I think like you should do that as long as it makes sense. But at the same time, once you start finding yourself answering the same questions over and over and over, it makes less sense for you. It's a less good use of your own time to do that than to hire somebody out who can not only just answer support tickets, but help you like flesh out your support docs to answer common questions and then point people to those when the time comes. So my tip is to hire part-time. There's this, like, people seem to think that like you have to go from nobody's doing something to having somebody full-time doing it, and then like, oh, there's not enough work. Like part-time is completely acceptable. There's entire companies who just like, you can outsource the support side of things too in the short term. So I would suggest hiring somebody to do support part-time until there's enough volume to handle it full-time. And then, but like also the role of a support person, I'm less of a fan of them like just being like a ticket monkey and like they're just sitting there just knocking out tickets all day. Like they should be doing other stuff like building out support docs, even doing things like webinars and just like creating content to help customers succeed. Like we call people who work at Baremetrics on support stuff, we say customer success. Like it's not just about supporting them, it's like helping them succeed. So that's how we do that. Okay, next question. Thanks for sharing your free trial to paid conversion rate. 31% is incredible. Do you still require a credit card to be a free trial user? And could you share stats of the rest of your funnel? What's your conversion rate from unique visitor to free trial? Okay, so no, we don't require a credit card to do the free trial thing. And that's we still have this, I don't know if you call it a problem, but qualifying people as a good fit, it's still kind of pretty specific. So it's not just like early days, it was just Stripe and you had to be using the Stripe subscription API and you had to be using it appropriately. And that's actually turned out to be not that big. Or like the number of customers who are actually doing that well was hard to come by. And that's gotten a little bit better, but still, like you still have to be using Stripe, Braintree, Chargeify, Recurly, and you have to be using their subscription APIs appropriately. And then we also have our own API, but like there's all these things that you kind of have to go through as far as qualification goes before Baremetrics makes sense for you. So we found that it's a lot easier to have people just jump in, connect their data, make sure that it even works. And then from there, we can kind of, we'll figure out what's the right plan for you to be on based on your MRR. I apologize. I've got two pugs here and they sound like little chainsaws. So that's the question about requiring the credit card. As far as stats on the rest of the funnel, I don't have that stuff on hand right now. And we just a month ago, fixed the funnel tracking stuff in Mixpanel, like tracking pre-sign up through post sign up. And so we don't actually have a ton of historical data on the entire funnel. But we should have that in a decent set of that in the next 60 days or so, at which point we will probably write an article about it. And that also is the whole conversion rate from unique visitor to free trial. That's still a little too wishy-washy and it's not like the number in and of itself isn't all that special because the unique visitor who's actually qualified based on all the other things about using the APIs appropriately is very specific. And so we don't actually pay a whole lot of attention to the unique visitor to free trial flow at this point. Let's see. Next up, Alan asks, how do you come up with your marketing strategy? What are your best marketing wins? And what is the story behind signing up Buffer as a customer? Okay, so marketing strategy. So there is an article kind of about this. Let me see if I can add a comment here. Okay, yes. So I just added a link to article on the blog about like the system we use. That's more for prioritizing a marketing idea, but it helps. It includes a spreadsheet and all that you can use. It also helps for brainstorming marketing ideas and strategies and just stuff to try. And so that's kind of where we started, just like throwing like, oh, I wonder if this would work. I don't know. So let's throw it into the spreadsheet. And based on these different factors that we rate it, it can prioritize what we should focus on next. Best marketing wins, though, have been things like, the blog was just a consistent winner. That's, I don't know, a large majority of customers come from some content that we've put out. But then also other things like that have worked really well are the SaaS benchmarks. So we have like this live dashboard of SaaS benchmarks. So baremetrics.com/benchmarks. That works really well from like a viral content kind of thing. And then some tools that we put out So there's like a build versus buy calculator. So the common phrase here is like engineering as marketing. So we build a little tool that's free for people to use and they share that stuff around. So build versus buy calculator, there was a little forecasting tool, which ended up wrapping into Baremetric itself, but there was a tool there where you could plug in your numbers and forecast for your future MRR. So like that kind of stuff that's pretty unique and I mean, relatively low effort required to produce it. So then the story behind signing up Buffer as a customer. So Baremetrics launched in November 2013. Then there's just me doing everything: design, development, marketing, support, whatever. Then in April, there's this conference called MicroConf, and I went there that year. That was my second year, I think, to go. And in that particular case, like I had gone, there was a dinner for a few founders put together that I went to, and Heaton Shah of Crazy Egg, Kissmetrics, a couple other things. So he was there and we were hanging out at that dinner and chatting, and he was an advisor, or is an advisor for Buffer. And so we were talking about, I had made the Baremetrics dashboard public maybe 2 or 3 months prior. So demo.baremetrics.com. So you could see all of our metrics, and that's been there for almost since day one. So he was like, man, Buffer is big on transparency, and they publish all this stuff about salary, yada, yada. You should talk to, Heaton's telling me this, you should talk to Buffer about making their stuff public via Baremetrics. Yeah, I thought that's a great idea. So Heaton does a email intro to Joel and Leo at Buffer, and I mean, I don't know, a couple of weeks later, we had made that thing happen. So we set up buffer.baremetrics.com and got them rolling. I mean, that happened pretty quick. And that was a big boost for us, or for me. I mean, it was still just me. So that was a big boost as far as growth. Like lots of people found out about Baremetrics through Buffer. Lots of people still find out about Baremetrics through Buffer because they still push that public dashboard out the wazoo. So that's kind of how that came about. Let's see. All right. So Robert asks, with the barrage of marketing products targeting startups and small businesses, barrage is correct. Can you suggest a strategy on when to ignore them all, and then how to quickly identify the serious ones that can actually help me? So the marketing products in and of themselves, like products to me are there to optimize an existing system, or to help you do something just more efficiently in general, something you're already doing. So like, I think the point of the marketing tool, if you don't already have some stuff in place, like any kind of systems, they're not going to necessarily like all of a sudden help you do something amazing. Like you already have to have some things moving. You might be doing them really manually, or it might just be going really slow, or whatever. But like you need to have some sort of system in place, like a strategy in place, and then find a tool that helps make that process or that strategy more efficient. So that's kind of how I approach that. The less tools I have, the fewer tools I have to use, the better. I mean, like I'm tired of using like 1,000 different tools. It's kind of overwhelming. So I would say spend less time thinking about the tools, and think like, does the tool actually help systematize things or optimize things in a meaningful way that helps us make more money? Like, especially early on, if you're not making some like serious amount of money, then what's the point of optimizing anything? Like it's not going to help you do something that you're not already doing in some form or fashion. Felix asks, why are you doing Baremetrics Live? So I like it. So I think this is maybe the 4th or 5th one that we've done. And I just like talking shop and hearing what other people are working on, hearing what problems people are having, and talking about it. So lots of people have helped me over the years. And so I guess there's some level of like altruism and kind of want to give back. But at the same time, I mean, like there's also like a slight selfish reason in that it kind of gives me ideas for future content to talk about. So if like I see people asking lots of questions about a tangentially related topic, then okay, we'll write about it. But in general, I just like talking about this stuff. All right, next question. I'm a 20-year-old software developer studying at a reputed engineering college. I want to get into software sales business. I wish to know where and how I could begin my career and what is the best way to approach a mentor to go into this field. So you just need to start doing it. Like, I don't, I actually was thinking about writing about this the other day, like where I don't think that it's necessarily a great, I guess it depends on like ultimately what, the software sales thing. I mean, like, I think of sales as like guys and girls who can like just kill it and drag it home. Like they don't need anybody to like hold their hand. They're self-starters who go out and do the work that needs to be done to make something happen. So if that's what you want to get into, then like just go after it. Like go, I don't know, like find a company who needs some help with software sales and say, hey, I'll work 10 hours a week or something, or I'll bring you in 10 customers this month. Like just give me the resources I need to make that happen. Like prove it real quick, because sales is one of those things where it pays for itself if it works, or you might find that you're not great at it. And so you didn't have to go through this whole, like finding a career, finding a mentor, like just go in there and start doing it. Like that is the fastest way to figure out how to do anything on earth. Is to just jump in and start doing it. So that's my suggestion there. Okay, next question. I have bootstrapped through outsourced devs. My SaaS is mobile app so far for $35 per hour per dev. I'll be ready in a few weeks and start bringing on customers and get feedback and seeking product market fit. After 3 months, I want beta ready based feedback. Do you suggest I keep paying my outsourcers to get me to beta, or do I try to hire devs full time? Like, don't try to do anything full time until you've proved something. And like you just need to get people to start paying you as soon as possible. Like I wouldn't spend 3 months of doing anything. Like, so the first version of Baremetrics was done. Total time I put in was about 7 or 8 days. And then it was done. I mean, that was spread out over the course of about a month because I was doing other things. But like, there's no reason to spend months doing something, because what happens then is you end up making a lot of assumptions about what users want or what they'll do, or that they even need the thing that you're doing. And you don't need to wait months to figure that out. You need to wait like weeks at most. So I would suggest doing whatever it is it takes to get to a product that can be purchased in some fashion to prove the idea as soon as possible, no matter what. Okay. Next, if you had to start from scratch with a new business, what would you create? I don't know. Like, I mean, there's things like, I don't know, a couple of years ago, I remember thinking this right here, like Crowdcast, which is how this video live streaming thing is hosted, would be a great thing to go into. And then Crowdcast came along and they're doing really well, because like Google Hangouts live streaming stuff is terrible, and everything else for like this sort of thing, almost like a webinar thing, is just awful. So they've come in and done a really great job. That's what I would have done a couple of years ago if I think if Baremetrics had not existed, or I don't know. But I don't know. I don't spend a ton of time thinking about like what new businesses. For the most part, lots of people have created some solution to basically any business problem. I mean, things like that have come in the past couple of years. I mean, like HR kind of stuff. That's a big hassle, especially for remote teams. So like companies like JustWorks do that really well. Like help you navigate and just outsource all of the crazy tax junk. But yeah, I don't know. I don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about other things like other businesses I would create. That's not a great answer, but that's what I got. Okay. Do you still do customer interviews? Current, past, and potential? If so, how often? What does the process look like? And what kind of insights do you get out of them? So I'm going to assume customer interviews is like me scheduling a phone call with customers just to check in. So yes, not nearly as much as I do. Now I usually do it more so on the back end, like if they cancel. So I feel like we've got a lot better handle on why people use us, how they find us. And we've got a lot of resources in place to help them, like sort of the life cycle of succeeding with Baremetrics and like helping them grow their businesses. We've got a lot of tools and resources in place for that. And so now it's just most of my time is spent around, when it comes to interacting with customers, is usually around the cancellation side of things, because churn's a thing that like everybody wants less of. So I spend a lot of time about that. And it's like throughout the week, it depends on the week. Sometimes 1 or 2, sometimes 5 to 10, just kind of depends. And the process is basically when someone cancels, so like self-serve cancellation, then at the end, they're prompted to say, it's like, hey, I'd love some feedback. We'll donate $100 to the charity of your choice if you spend 30 minutes chatting with me. Here's a link to schedule a phone call. So that's what we do. And the insights are more just like, when you have a phone call with somebody, you get a lot more feedback around their thinking with things, like how they arrived at that decision, in a way that doesn't translate well to like a text box. So you just kind of can pick their brain a little bit more, and they kind of hear like, oh, we love Baremetrics, but XYZ. Or we had a really hard time with Baremetrics, and like you can hear their tone, and like, are they legitimately angry, or are they just like bummed? Like the tone says a lot. So, yeah. Let's see. Next question here. You've invested in podcasting multiple times. What kind of results and benefits have you seen from those efforts, and what is the biggest pain point around that? So we currently have 3 podcasts, which when you say that sounds crazy. And maybe it is. So we have Founder's Journey, which is essentially an audio version of the content that we post. So I'll write an article and then I'll read it and try to not sound like I'm reading it. So put that in podcast. And then there's Founder Chats, which is like an interview thing where I like call up founders that I know or don't know, schedule a time with them, and we'll do like anywhere from like a 30-minute to an hour interview and talk about their origin story, things that they're working on, just get their history and kind of what makes their business tick. And then there's Startup Tips, which are these like 30-second to 2-minute little audio blips that give you startup tips. Surprise. So the results from like podcasting, the reason we do the podcasting stuff is not for this direct like, okay, 37 people came from a podcast to Baremetrics, check. It's more about like being in a lot of places. So like we want Baremetrics to, like, everywhere you turn, anything that, whether that's medium, whether it's podcasting, whether it's on YouTube, like Baremetrics exists there. And so like we want all this content around building a business to be accessible in any format that you want. And so what that means is that it's not like I'm producing 3 podcasts worth of unique content, right? So like the Founder's Journey, well, I've already produced the content in article form. So I'm just translating that to audio. But a lot of people prefer audio, and like they would listen to this audio version on their way to work, and instead of never actually getting around to reading it. Then the Startup Tips, I'm not like thinking up new tips here. Like I'm going back through previous articles and like looking at the headlines and figuring out like, okay, what are some takeaways here that I could shove into like a 30-second to 2-minute little blip. The Founder Chats, the interviews, are the most work. I mean, like there's a lot more that goes into that, almost from a time perspective. I mean, like I do some research ahead of time around, like what kind of questions to ask, or like what are some interesting things about their story that I want to be sure to bring up. But at the end of the day, it's still more about just this conversation, like we're grabbing coffee, and you get to like overhear that. So those are a ton of work. But I still think like they're worth it. Because there's not a lot of people doing those kinds of things. And, podcasting in and of itself is having this like resurgence. So that we're just trying it out, and it's not, in general, it's not a lot of work. 2 of those 3 podcasts require very little effort. So it's sort of a why not. So the biggest pain point around them is maybe the editing portion of that. I mean, that's only because I haven't outsourced it. Most of it's like throwing on an intro and an outro, bleeping out curse words, and cutting out things like, oh, your mic isn't working, kind of stupid stuff. So that stuff, that like the plan is to outsource that to like a administrative assistant kind of thing. I mean, it's that kind of work that's doesn't necessarily require a huge staff to do it. There's one of the dogs. Okay. Let's see here. All right. Based on what you know, if you could only invest your marketing dollars into one channel, what would it be and why? Ooh, content, any kind of content. So for us, content is one of these things that if we haven't spent a lot of dollars on a marketing channel, like say Facebook ads, or like pay-per-click stuff, like right now the content stuff works really well, and it's compounding. Like we just keep producing it and it keeps going and going and going. Like people post, share the articles that we wrote 3 years ago, like we'll still get shared every day. So that stuff, I mean, yeah, I want to produce more content. So that's not a quick win. Like that doesn't pay in the same way that like a Facebook ad would be. Like you spend $5 to a click to acquire a customer, and then you make some money from that, and then you can just keep pouring money into that. Like we haven't done anything like that. And in reality, it's like we don't need to. So like we're profitable. So there's not this urgency to quickly find some marketing channel so that we can quickly grow profits so that we don't run out of money. We're in it for the long game, and content marketing is the long game. I mean, I would love to find a channel where we, even if it cost $500 or $1,000 to acquire a customer, in theory that would still work out because of the lifetime value of the customer. But we just haven't experimented with that because it's really expensive to, I think, try it out at any sort of meaningful scale. And it doesn't pay off as it doesn't have like the long-term benefits that the content marketing stuff does. Maybe you'd want to do both at the same time, but money. So, okay. Trucking along here. How many? We got 10 more questions right now. Feel free to keep adding questions, and we'll keep hanging out for a little while. All right. Alex asks, we're building a SaaS with a 1-month free trial period. Should we ask for credit card for the free trial so we have it when it's time to upgrade? If yes, should we auto charge at the end of the trial unless users cancel or wait for a specific opt? So the whole like requiring a credit card or not is 100% something that you need to A/B test. I mean, it's as simple as that. Like there's not any other way. There's no, well, always do it this way or don't do it that way. Or if, like you just have to try it and see what works. So we found that we prefer to just get people in the door without the credit card. And then we can get them into the onboarding cycle of emails and in-app messages and have a conversation with them a lot easier than requiring the credit card. Because a lot of times, and this depends, again, it depends on your business, right? Like, are the people that you're after, do they usually have the credit card, or do they need to go ask somebody for the credit card? So like that's a big barrier to entry, especially like developer tools. Like a lot of times the developer doesn't have the credit card, but you definitely want them to try out the tool because they can certainly convince the person with the credit card to pay for it. So I think you just have to test it and see what works best for your business. And what works best at the beginning may not work best in 2 years. So you always have to try that stuff. Like always be testing that. All right. These votes are out of it. Let's see. Out of order here. Interesting. Let's see if we switch back. 2, 3. There's lots of these. Okay. Where's one? 3. Okay, 3 votes. Brad says, I understand that your team is all over the globe. How do you manage the team when they are not physically located in the same area? I mean, by not managing them, I guess, like I hire people who are like self-starters, capable of just getting their work done. We have a roadmap of stuff that we're after, that we need to be working on, making progress towards, and they do that. And that's it. I mean, like um, we've all got things that we are working on, and my job isn't so much manager as it is enabler. So if somebody in engineering needs something, then I should get it for them. Like that's my job, is to make sure that people have what they need to do their job. And if something's in the way, it's my job to get it out of the way. In addition to doing the things that I'm doing. So like a lot of times, a lot of my role revolves around the marketing aspect of stuff. So I'm doing that, plus making sure that my team has what they need to do their job. And so Mr. H has this follow-up question here about like, it requires a lot of trust in people. I mean, yeah, absolutely. But that's a hiring problem. Like I don't hire people that I need to manage. That means hiring people who have most of the time have worked remotely before. Maybe they've been a freelancer. Maybe they've started their own business before, but like they're capable of working without somebody like making sure that they're working. And if you can't do that, then like it probably won't last that long. But I mean, like it's extremely important to hire people who fit the role of working remotely. Not everyone can do that. And that's not to say that people who can't work remotely are like somehow at a disadvantage. Like I totally get people wanting to be in an office. And like they need that like in-person sort of community. Like they need the quick feedback on things. Like fine, totally. Just a different way of doing it. And like the follow-up question here again, like, so some remote companies take screenshots and it sounds like you don't do that. No, absolutely. Like the last thing I want to do is micromanage people. Like I measure the efficiency of some of people on our team by their ability to get stuff done. Like we're just working towards a common goal here. And so that means like I'm in like today. So every other Thursday I have one-on-ones with each person on the team. Spend most of my day doing one-on-ones. So that's having an individual meeting with each person on our team so that I can hear like, what are the things you're struggling with? And like that might include somebody saying like, I don't feel like Sally's pulling her weight, or Joe has been really hard to work with, but like that's so rare because I headed that stuff off at the pass by hiring people who were a good fit for working remotely. And then ultimately, like you have to let people go when they stop being efficient or effective in that role. But again, like that's so rare because you have to solve that in the hiring process. Like that has to be a major part of the hiring process, is like figuring out, can this person handle working remotely and not need me to like constantly check up on them? And I mean, you mentioned all over the globe. Yeah. Like two of our engineers are in Europe. So like the time zone difference is 6-ish hours difference between when I show up for work. Like they're towards the end of their workday while I'm starting mine. So like I know that they've been getting stuff done, and I'll show up and they'll have questions about things, but like they're doing really great work, and it works out great for them to be in the same time zone because they get to work together. But either way, it's a hiring issue more than a management issue. If it turns into a management issue, like you're like putting band-aids on things. Like you've got a problem higher up the chain. Okay, let's see here. All right. Dylan asked about the podcast, which we actually already answered that. So I'm going to delete on that. Sorry, Dylan. Next up. Okay. Is all your marketing inbound, or have you tried outbound as well? 100% inbound. We don't do any outbound cold calling, emailing, anything like that. It's all producing content so that the inbound funnel is as huge as it possibly can be. Yeah, pretty straightforward. We don't have any kind of sales team. So we have like our customer success team handles sort of like doubles as like the sort of a sales thing, but it's like, it's less salesy and it's more about like, how can we make sure you understand what Baremetrics does, but also more importantly, is Baremetrics a good fit for you? Let's hop on the call and do a demo or a webinar or something to like, to help make sure that your company stands to receive value from Baremetrics enough so that you should pay for it. So, all right, let's see. There's always, okay, there we go. Question here. So for over 10 years, I've had a business that's mostly run itself. It's sort of niche and thus only large enough to support me and my family. All fine, but it being just me meant that it's almost impossible to exit outside of just shutting down. Working on a new thing now, which is much larger. Do you have any thoughts about planning for a time when you can't or don't want to be involved day to day while still bootstrapping? I'm not sure I understand the question here. It's like, so is the, like, you're saying you don't want to do the side business anymore, and you want to move on to something else? I'll have to come back to that one. Okay, let's see. Next question here. What is your balance between executing on the things you've decided to do and reading and learning about new things you can do or add to what you're already doing? I guess in another word, how do you keep from getting shiny object syndrome while also not missing out on new good ideas? Okay, should quickly. So I think most things aren't that urgent. They feel urgent, but in reality, things are not urgent. Like the idea of needing to get out something quickly, it just doesn't, that's typically not the case. Like maybe sometimes, but like that assumes that getting something out the door, like it sort of all ends in one big launch. And like, that's your one chance at making something happen. But no, like, it's like, it's the ongoing, like there's the initial launch, which will have, maybe some, have this sort of influx of things, but like, that's not where the hard work is. The hard work is like the ongoing, just plugging along. But like, if you're doing something meaningful, then it will be a problem that needs a solution for a long time. And if the market's big enough for that, like you could have years of trying to work on something and, or even just a given feature or something, and it always be this need. I mean, that's ideal. So like, how do you keep from like chasing rabbits or like hopping on to something and kind of forgetting everything else? I think like having a roadmap is really important, and sticking to that. I mean, there's occasionally some like opportunities that come up that are worth jumping on, but more often than not, even if somebody has done something before us, if we're able to come in and take our time but do it well, then that's totally fine for us. So I think shiny object syndrome only exists when you're worried about the competition, and we just don't pay attention to the competition. Okay. Got a few more questions here. Looks like 5. We'll tackle those. Okay. Let's see. I'll be doing sales as a co-founder and CEO. At what point should I consider hiring a salesperson or a team? We're in public alpha now, and we plan for beta to be released in 3 months. I don't think like the sales thing, if the product requires an actual sales team, then do it as soon as you can. But I mean, that's like, you're kind of planning for it before you're like even kind of close to it is a little premature. Like you need to get out of this whole like alpha beta thing and just launch the product and see what it looks like, because the assumptions that you make now could be completely irrelevant in not 3 months, but like 3 weeks. So you need to like not worry about when you should consider hiring salespeople until it's like a problem. It's much better to wait until there's this obvious need than to hire ahead of time and put yourself in a pickle. Okay. Okay. Hi, I like bootstrapping and being profitable. Amen. We can grow faster with investment, but not sure if it's time to fundraise. So I think that's you're making an assumption there that you can grow faster with investment. Grow what faster? Can you grow a team faster? Sure, you can hire faster, but hiring a team does not always, and many times definitely does not have any sort of direct correlation to revenue or business growth. So can you grow faster, like spend more money to acquire customers? Yeah, but do you have this like really obvious funnel for acquiring customers with from like a paid perspective? If so, okay, cool. But at the same time, like that will get more expensive, not cheaper. So like that, even pouring in money to like paid advertising does not scale for a long time. So I think fundraising does not make sense in as many scenarios as people think it does. And this is coming from somebody, I mean, Baremetrics, we've raised $800,000 in funding. And it's not that I wouldn't do it again. It's just I wouldn't spend it on hiring anybody. So that's the part where it's like you think like, oh, if we can hire 3 engineers with this, and then that will be able to ship stuff twice as fast. But like, no, it doesn't work that way. A lot of times you become less efficient, certainly for a while you get that whole get people onboarded and the work that an engineer puts in. You might not see see that reflected in your revenue for 6+ months. So like I think it's easy to think that, man, we just had lots of money, we could do X, Y, and Z, and then we'd grow, and then we'd be like billionaires. Like it just doesn't work that way. So I'd say like stay on the bootstrapped profitable route as long as you can. You don't ever want to have to raise money. And that's the problem, is like people who raise money then get stuck in the loop of spending the money, and then their revenue doesn't catch up with it, which happens more often than it doesn't. All right. 3 more questions here. And if you've got other questions, put them in now, or these 3 will be kind of our last ones. So have you ever spoken to a competitor that may have been in the space before you to see what your product meant and determine the best way for you to possibly not compete directly for the same customers? I legitimately could not care less what our competitors are doing. Doesn't matter, because I think the market is big enough to support lots of different companies doing things. And I think when competitors pay attention to each other, the person who's paying attention to the other person is perpetually one step behind. Just always playing catch up. And it makes the assumption that the competitors, the thing that they're doing is working. And a lot of times it's just not. So I just don't pay any attention to competitors. Haven't spoken to them either. And don't try to converse with them to figure out some ways that like, you can have these customers, I have these. Like, I'm going to do what's best for our customer base and the people that we want to help. And if somebody else wants to try to copy that, cool, that's their business, but we're going to keep doing what's best for our customers. All right. Let's see. What's the best way to find a CTO or technical co-founder? I've been outsourcing all the devs. I mean, look at existing network and contacts. Like, that's sort of the best place. Or you need to learn to code. I think a lot of people don't think of that as an option, but like, if you're in a position where you're having to find somebody that you want to call a co-founder, to me, like if you haven't started a business with somebody, like you both have this idea and are in it on it together, anybody after that's not a co-founder. Like, you just need to hire somebody and keep outsourcing that stuff until you can hire somebody to not outsource that stuff anymore. So, and that's just like that's a budget thing, really. Okay. Let's see here. How are you collecting ideas for new features and similarly new marketing content? So ideas for new features, I mean, so we don't look at things from a feature perspective. We look at things more from like what are problems that our customers are consistently having that we can solve. And sometimes that's a new feature. Sometimes it's just reworking, that's a UX thing. But as far as collecting that stuff, I don't know. We have like an ongoing list and Basecamp of just things that we randomly think of or that customers suggest. And we'll kind of like revisit that every month or two just to see if like there's something like, oh, here's some commonalities amongst things that we're noticing. And here's a way that we could solve that. So marketing content, I actually answered that earlier, but we've got this marketing idea scoring system that you can find on the Baremetrics blog. Let's see. Have you raised your prices at any time for existing customers? No. So we don't raise prices for existing customers. So we have raised prices. We've tried a few different types of pricing too, but we don't force anybody to upgrade to like if they're getting something at $50 a month, we don't say like, sorry, that plan is now $100. Too bad. Like we'll grandfather you on that. Let's see. What goes into considering if you're not the best CEO for your own startup? And if so, what other position should non-CEO founder choose? CEO is not something to even worry about until you've got, I don't know, 5+ people or something. I mean, that's kind of an arbitrary number, but like early on, the only thing you need to be doing is like figuring out how are we going to make the thing work, period. Like how do we find customers and how do we make things that customers want to pay for? And that doesn't matter if you're the CEO or whatever you want to call it. Like everybody, anybody you hire, all should be focused 100% on figuring out if this is even viable. And then we can worry about titles and roles and all that stuff later. But right now it's like, are you bringing anything to the table that helps the business become an actual business? And that's all you should really be worrying about. Okay. Looks like we got one more question. Alan asks, do you pitch Baremetrics as better than the competition? And from a marketing point of view, how do you feel customers choose you over the competition? So I just talked about this. I don't pay attention to the competition. Certainly don't pitch it as better than the competition because I don't know what the competition's doing. Like I'll occasionally hear somebody says like, hey, we're leaving Baremetrics for whoever because we needed X or Y or whatever. Like, okay, that's good for us to know. It's good feedback. But we're solving a very specific problem for our customers. And sort of that's that, you know, like I certainly don't say like, hey, we're like these other people, but we're like awesome and stuff. Like to me, it's a race to the bottom when you're saying like, we're better, you know, like you have to approach things from the, like, you have a problem and we have a solution. Let's be friends. And that's how we approach things from a marketing perspective. Okay. I think that's all. It's been about an hour, and that's typically kind of where these things kind of wrap up. So this was a lot of fun. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for sending in questions. I appreciate you you guys giving up an hour of your day for this. And I think after this is done recording, it'll maybe have a link for you to watch it afterwards or something, which you can share or whatever. Well, that's all I got. If you have anything, like, want to follow up with anything, have any extra questions, want to talk about anything else, shoot me an email, josh@baremetrics.com, or on Twitter @Spigverd, and, baremetrics.com if you need some analytics for your biz. I think that's all. All right, folks, have a wonderful Thursday. See you later.